Testing 1, 2, 3. We have it in order. Yes. Hello, everybody. This is James Nussbaumer, but let me get these spectacles off first. James Nussbaumer here, and I am the author of The Master of Everything, a story of mankind in the world of illusion that we call life, on sale everywhere books are sold and published by Ozark Mountain Publishing Company. Oh, it's building great momentum, and I hope you jump on board and become a part of the momentum. The Master of Everything. The sequel is on its way out soon, also by Ozark Mountain Publishing Company. This video is in answer to many of my friends on Facebook: Alex Z, April K, Mike H, Russ P, Larry L, and on, Chris J, David W, David S, Cindy J, and if I missed any of you, I didn't want to mention last names. I apologize, but this is my best effort. These people, these fine friends through Facebook who have helped me along the way, learning a little bit of the tech savvy things I've had to learn along the way, have asked me, they said, Jim, we've read your book. We've read your book, but we'd like to hear a little bit of firsthand. Maybe you could put together a video on a little bit about your background, your upbringing, or something like that, as to, what kept you so motivated and led you astray to make the mistake you made that sent you away. Well, I'm not really going to touch on that because I've talked so much about that, and many of you know my story. But for all of you folks I just mentioned and others there, I hope that this will satisfy you. Now, I'm limited on time, so please bear with me on this video. So it's going to be a little bit longer video than normal, but I'm going to try to get right to the point, right to the heart of the matter. So I've titled this video called Letting Go and Moving On from Your Heart. And the reason I say letting go is because we all have frustrations that we deal with, no matter what it is in our life. Certain frustrations that we just got to let go, and we got to move on within our heart. So that's why I'm calling this letting go and moving on from your heart. And the first thing I can say is, don't keep moving forward and you'll always be stuck in the past. That's not a good place to be stuck in, because it really doesn't exist. It's an illusion. I think very highly of the importance of continuing to move forward. Occasionally, I get asked about how the ego fits into the equation of letting go and moving on. But first, I feel it's necessary to let me start with this brief and cute Zen story. A Zen master speaks to his students about a great warrior of ancient Japan who once marched out to meet the enemy with an army 1/10 the number of the opposition. This general's name was Nobunaga. That's kind of a hard one for me to pronounce. Nobunaga, and he had said to himself, I will win, I am sure. But his men were doubting Nobunaga's word. His men doubted him. Well, en route to the field of battle, Nobunaga paused to offer prayers at a wayside shrine. Then he told his soldiers, Destiny holds us in her hand. From his pocket, he took out a coin. I will toss it. If heads comes up, we will win the battle. If it be tails, then we must prepare for our death. He flung the coin skyward. It flashed in the sun's light and then fell heads up. A roar of courage shook the inspired soldiers. Eager to fight, Nobunaga's men won the battle easily. No one can change the hand of destiny with the toss of a coin, the victorious warrior's right-hand aide had told Nobunaga after the fighting was over. Indeed, one cannot, Nobunaga replied, smiling. He held up the coin he had tossed, which was double-headed. Each of us has a destiny that is chartered beyond our own thinking. But the world we live in sends us in a multitude of directions. So the courses that we pursue in life are not always of our own choosing, and we often work to achieve goals that do not reflect what we truly want. The individual who believes he is a complete master of his own destiny exists solely in the eyes of his own ego. I began to idolize the Beatles at age 7 when I first saw them perform on the Ed Sullivan Show. Later, as a determined young boy to be all that I could be, I wanted to know more about their song, Lucy in the Sky. And I fantasized about being on the cover of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album. I yearned to be a part of the revolution and the evolution that they sang about. Their free spirit and free will struck me, and I wanted it too. Growing up in 1960s Ohio, I was the oldest of 6 children in a low-income Catholic family, but a happy family. My father worked as a welder at a local factory, and my mother was a registered nurse at the local hospital. My dream beyond rock and roll was to be a football hero at Notre Dame. But this was also the dream of all the other boys I played parochial league football with. My desire felt to me that it was bigger than the other boys, so the dream continued for a while. I felt I could do it. I can remember those days, as small as I was, running around the big guys and scoring touchdowns. And believe me, I did pretty well and scored many touchdowns as a small halfback. And I was told that the other teams keyed on me each game. By the time I was a freshman at Central Catholic High School, although my size had not yet caught up with my desire, at the team's official weigh-in, I came up with the idea of placing a few weights into my pocket to portray a heavier me on the roster. I didn't want to be seen on the roster in the program that goes out for the games of being such a small little scrawny little halfback. So anyways, as I stood on the scale teetered at 96 pounds. No kidding. 96 pounds as a freshman in high school and a halfback on the football team. This is no kidding. I was very concerned about my weight and height if I were to earn a scholarship to play football for the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. I tried all the stretching gimmicks and sprinkled loads of wheat germ all over every meal. Wheat germ was very popular back then. It was a little thing that came in a big jar, for those of you that don't know what it was, and it's kind of a little supplement that you'd sprinkle all over your food, and it was supposed to enhance growth. So I'd sprinkle wheat germ over every meal, but I just could not seem to grow. I wasn't sprouting. After the freshman football season, I was forced by lack of pounds and inches to awaken from the dream of tearing up the turf at Notre Dame. Well, I finished high school in a few more years with slightly above average grades, only because I never prepared for tests. I just showed up for classes, but was always at class and was a good student, but I just never studied for the tests. And my physical form finally had matured. Well, my parents had always been, and still are, devoted Catholics, and they expected the same from their 4 daughters and 2 sons. My grandparents, as well, occupied the same third-row seat every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Mass at St. Barbara's Catholic Church. It was an old parish with generations of good Catholic families, with a cemetery behind the church for the members who had passed along to a better place. At Sunday Mass, I would sit in confusion, bored with the sermons and readings and impatient with the kneeling, standing, and sitting. I was an altar boy, too, and as an altar boy, I was often seen fidgeting and daydreaming of girls, football, music, and anything else other than my duties on the altar. Occasionally, I would get a nasty look while serving as an altar boy. I'd get a nasty look with a signal from Father Dom when I was late ringing the consecration bell. I want to make sure I say consecration. In my book, we say concentration, but there's a reason for that. But when I was late ringing the concentration bell at the most boring part of the Mass, I'd get these nasty looks from Father Dom, like, "Why aren't you with us here?" Well, of course, at that age, I really didn't understand what was going on at this part of the Mass, and that's why it was so confusing and why I would daydream. What I wanted to know really about the most was the most, what I wanted the most was what I really wanted to learn to know more about. Sometimes I get a little tongue-tied on things. What I really wanted to know growing up, rather than all the boring things I would think that was going on at the Mass, I really wanted to know the secret conversations that Jesus had with his friends, the apostles. I figured there had to be parts left out in the fragments recorded in the gospel. All the gospels, there had to be things left out because it's simply not big enough to tell everything. And I also suspected that the gospels had to be touched up a bit after all these years. Now that's just the way I kind of looked at things. And I wondered what they really talked about, what Jesus and the apostles really talked about while out for the day, say on Peter's fishing boat. You know, they had to be talking about something while they were out there all day fishing. You know, how did they hang out together? What jokes did they tell one another? You know, how did they talk about the local women? I always believed that Mary Magdalene was Jesus's wife, and I still do. I wanted to know more than the people who wrote the history books were willing to tell us. Maybe they didn't know themselves. As discussed more in my book, The Master of Everything, that I had just showed you, I guess it was during my high school days when I admitted to myself that, you know, God was not this old man with a white beard, wearing a white robe, sitting up in the sky on a golden throne, somewhere past the sun, who handed out favors to those who prayed the most. You know, well, the theology classes in Catholic high school seemed to not want to go into that sort of a thing. The study was more about making sense of the New and Old Testaments, which I found quite interesting. The Exodus and the travels of Paul following Jesus' death did interest me, but I always wanted more. My doubts were not about God ever. I never doubted a God. So don't get me wrong there, but I doubted the experts who interpreted all these teachings. Why was I supposed to trust someone else's view of things? The only answer I could get when I asked was the same old thing, because the Bible says so. Everyone seemed afraid to put their own interpretation into the Holy Word. A Course in Miracles states, the link with which the Father joins himself to those he gives the power to create can never be dissolved. And let me repeat that profound, deep statement. The link with which the Father joins himself to those he gives the power to create can never be dissolved. In other words, that link, how we interpret things, if we're serious and truthful, that can never be dissolved. That can never be taken away from us. Don't get me wrong. My upbringing did give me a strong foundation for which I am very grateful. And there were many teachers, nuns, and priests whom I admired. Oh my goodness, I would love to mention a few right now, but we just don't have time. But I will mention one. It was also nice to find out that Father Kaler, fresh out of the seminary, when I was a high school senior, was sporting shoulder-length hair down to here, because long hair was the thing back then. He was fresh out of the seminary. And he was also a Beatles fan. It was nice to know that. And he felt that even Jesus would have been listening to Let It Be and Hey Jude. I now hear it is a plus for the school that Father Kaler today is the school principal and even holds a higher position than the principal as well. Although I also heard he is minus the hair. He's completely bald, I heard now, which that goes with the territory. I'm not, making fun of it, but he's just such a tremendous guy. And if you know him, you'd chuckle a little bit along with me. But I still wanted answers that they just couldn't seem to commit to. Now, as I look back, I believe they must have had the same questions and also would have liked the same answers that I wanted. Here's to moving forward in your life, in leaving procrastination behind. Hey, if you'd like to learn more about creating abundance in your own life and living the life that you really want to do, my The link to my website is in the description box of this YouTube video. Click on it. It will take you to my Real Abundance page at my jamesnussbaumer.com website, and you can find some things there that may help you out. I hope you enjoyed the information that I gave you about a little bit about my past. And for all of you folks, my Facebook friends that I just mentioned, I hope that satisfies your request. It's the best I can do for now. And thanks for putting up with me for this extended length of a video. I wish the best for you, and I hope the best life possible. Live the life you want, regardless of what the world tells you what you want. God bless you.